Hello everyone. In this video, we will discuss on how to create a form in a web page. Form is used for the user to input data to the web server, right? Just like we input our name, we input our account, and also passwords. So there are several elements in the form which we are going to discuss it now. We'll discuss it one by one according to their use. So let's start. So form is created using the form tag, which we're going to write inside the body. So let's start first writing a header, creating web form. To start, we'll write form. So let's just disregard some of the attributes here. That will be used when we reach JavaScript, but for now we will just focus more on how to create the form or okay. So let's start with creating a somewhat like a text box. So this is the type of this element is text. You can create a text box using the input tag and specify the type, which is text. You can also use label tag to put text about what does this text box mean or applied for. You can also just directly write the text. Enter your name. Or you can do the modern way using an attribute. This is called placeholder. So the label is placed inside the element. So in this way, you can minimize the space of the form. You can also use Maxlen attribute to specify the maximum number of characters that could fit into that text box. And also you can use the attribute required, which tells the user that this has to be filled in. Okay, let's put button first so that we can test the functionality of this element. So by the way, there are two types of button. We will start using the submit type. So this is used to confirm or submit the data to the web server. That one. And the other one is reset. This allows user to clear the entries of some of the elements in the web form. Okay, so that's it, so that we can test our text box. So okay, clear is working. We use the Maxlen and required, and let us see the functionality. So as you can see, there are only maximum of 10 characters allowed to be placed in the text box. And if it is empty, then it would prompt, please fill out the box. So that's how the required attribute works. Okay, and then another input type is email. By the way, for the email text box, you can specify the type email instead of texts. In this example, I use text, but although it's still working, but it would be nice if it would be recommended to use the email. Okay, another input type is password. So this allows user to put the password. You can also specify the length of character for the password. So I specify here 10 characters. Now take note, if the type is password, then what comes out in the text box or dots, that means the characters are not the characters are not visible in the text box. You can also set the minimum length or the minimum number of characters in the password. And at the same time, you can also use required field, attribute, so that prompts the user to really input the password So the minimum length is 3 and we input 2 here, so and when we click the submit button, a message will come out that there is a need to have 3 minimum characters, which will be inputted in the text box password. Okay, let's try to delete this required in some other elements here so that we are not required to input the field as we test the other elements. The next input type is number. So there are times that we are required to put number, like for instance we are required to input our age, so that particular input element should only accept numbers. So that's it. So alphabets are not acceptable in that element or text box because we specify the type here, number. You can also set the minimum value, and so with the maximum value of the number. So as you can see, you can have the minimum of 5 and the maximum of 10 and no other number or no other value. Another input type is range. So this is somewhat like a slider. Okay. You can also set the minimum and maximum value of the slider. So where can we apply the range for this slider? Like for instance, you wanted to appear a specific amount or a specific price of an item. Like we wanted only to see all the items which within the range of 1,000 to 2,000, just like that. Okay, let us try to arrange these elements. We'll use break so that we could separate each element. We can put it place it in a respective line. Okay, let's continue. Another input type is input type date. So the input type date allows the user to select the date or see the calendar. For instance, if you wanted to book a flight, then you have to specify the date of your flight, like the travel date. Another input type is the time, so you can input the time. You can set the time either AM or PM. The next input type is the file. So this type of input allows the user to attach file or submit file into the web server, just like that. So this is how input type file is done. Okay, so when we click choose file, then you will be allowed to select the file that you wanted to submit. Okay, the next input file is color. So using this type, you are allowed to choose a color. Okay. Wait, there is looking in the break tag. Okay, so there you go. So the color palette appears, and then from there I'm not sure if this works, the placeholder. If that doesn't work, we'll just use another one. So here we can choose color. There. So you just slide and select that color you want. Okay. It seems that the placeholder is not working. We will change this one. We can just simply type it somewhere here above. Okay, so our color works. So let's have another input type. Okay, so aside from the date, time, and date, you can also have the week. So you can select the week of the month here. So that's basically the function of input type way. The next one is, the next input type is URL. So you are allowed to put the URL of a specific site or submit the URL of a specific site. The next one is the checkbox. So checkbox allows us to select or tick our choice. So using the checkbox button, we can select multiple choices. Like for instance, flavor of the ice cream, then you can combine the flavor. Another one is the radio button. So the difference between checkbox and radio button is that checkbox used for multiple choices and radio button is good only for a single choice. Okay, let's have another element. This time it's no longer an input element, input type element. So this one is using the select tag, wherein you can view the selections using the option tag inside the select tag. So this is somewhat like a drop down arrow. It's a drop down. Like example, you have a drop down menu, something like that, or drop down list of data. So you can use the select tab. Wait here, something is wrong in my mouse. Okay, like example, you have Cebu, Mandaue, then another city. Okay, what comes out first in the drop-down list is select city. So it's somewhat like just like a placeholder. So that prompts the user to select a city, or the list here are cities, something like that. Another element which allows the user to input, but this time we can input a paragraph or longer than what we have used or in the text box. So this is called text area. So you just simply use the text area tag and then specify the name and the rows and also the columns. Rows means the number of lines and the columns are the characters per line. So the higher the number of rows and columns, that mean we could input longer texts, just like that. So 5 rows and 10 columns. So this is quite small. So from there you can input the texts. So basically if you compute this one, we can only input 50 characters in that box. Now, we can also group these elements using the field set. So this is a new tag which is added in the HTML5 version. Okay, as you can see, field set allows you to group the form elements, and then using the legend you can put little description about this form. Okay, so legend is somewhat like a placeholder. So this is elements of form. So that's it. So this is just the work of the field set. Okay, that's all for creating web form, and I hope you have learned something from this.